So, I mean, that was a pretty exciting game against Utah. What do you have to say about that game?
I think that we did a great job of going from Friday to Sunday and like changing things without a lot of preparation, like practice for it. I thought we played really good offensively. I thought once again struggled in some defensive areas, but gave ourselves a chance to win at against a really good team in the mountains, which is a hard place to play. But the calls down the stretch were rough, but I think I can't control that. I know that was a long 1.5 seconds. I didn't know you could like throw a lob, fumble a ball, dribble, turn around, and shoot in 1 second. But I'm not like the judge of that. But it's just it was a hard one to swallow. But I think with that loss and what we learned, but it never goes down to the last play. I always say that it's down to like the free throw in the first quarter or the 3 missed box outs in the first quarter that led to threes. So those things. But it was a hard loss. But they're a really good team and they do a good job.
In general, that mountain road trip, you mentioned it has become a lot tougher over the years with Colorado getting better, Utah now a top 10 team. Can you just say the growth and development of those two programs?
Yes, I think they both, JR and Colorado has done a tremendous job. That's a hard place to play, and they're super competitive. They're really good defensively, a lot of high energy. They know that when you come there, everybody knows, every Pac-12 coach, that when you go there, it's going to be a hard game. And they really try to run you and pressure you, and it's a lot. And then you have to turn around a day later, less than 48 hours, and go to Utah. Utah is really good offensively, so many weapons. So it's a hard trip. I think I can speak for a lot of us in the Pac-12. When you see them on your calendar, you're like, oh, the mountains. You're glad when you don't have that trip. It's a tough trip.
How do you avoid letting that Utah game eat at you?
Yeah, I think that the Colorado game eats at me more because of the way we performed. I know that things can happen like that down the stretch, but Utah's a really good team. For us to go there and beat them in Utah with the way they're playing right now was a hard game. But the Colorado game is more disappointing because I felt like we didn't have a sense of urgency to start the game and didn't fight really hard. Just kind of let Colorado just manhandle us in a lot of ways. So to me, that was a harder one to swallow on that trip because if you take care of business the first trip, then the second game, the first game, then the second game is just it's a 50-50 game. You do your best. But I thought that we played so much better in the Utah game. So I think that's a growth thing, and it's also a hard situation. This is not an excuse at all, but you're going into a week where one team, like Utah, got to sit all week and prepare for us, and then because ASU didn't play. So then we had to go in and play Friday, Sunday in the mountains, like in altitude. It's hard. But we still could have won, and we still should have at least got a split on the road. And getting swept on the road is hard. I don't know the last time we got swept on the road.
So all season long you've talked about your defense, and it's not where it should be,
No.
right? But, and I know you have 7 new players and all that kind of stuff, but for people who don't understand out there,
Which is most people.
what is going on with the defense? Because at first glance you can tell it's obviously not the way it's been in the past. I know you have different personnel,
For sure.
but sort of what's going on at this point with the defense? And I know you work on it every single day.
Yeah, every day, especially this week. I just think that, so I always say this, like last year we couldn't score. And so we could play defense and you're like, oh, we can't score. This year we can score, but we don't have anybody with a real defensive mentality. And like the want and the will to like shut their opponent down. And that's a mentality. And I think that, we're also not as athletic as we've been in the past. I recognize that. We're getting better. But I don't think there's anybody on the team that has been focused on defense. And so that's very different. So when I think about those things, it's really different because Sam Thomas was a really good defensive player, took pride in defense, wanted to play good defense, and was never like this scoring machine, kind of evolved into a scorer also, but was never like a scoring mindset. And then you look at Bendu. Bendu's a defensive player. She's not a scoring mindset, a defensive mindset. So I think when I think about that, then I think about the year before, there's Aerie, there's Trinity. We're a little bit more athletic, stronger, longer. I just think it's just different personnel, and people, all of the players are used to different roles. So Jade is a scorer, not a defensive stopper. You have Laura, who was a scorer at Oklahoma State, it plays defense, but not like a defensive stopper mentality. And then you have Kate. Defense has always been kind of a struggle for her, but she's gotten better. She's gotten stronger. And then you have our best post defender out, Lauren was by far our best post defender and a very good defensive player, very good communicator. So we're missing that. That hurts your defense. And then, you have Mary, who's really physical in a conference that doesn't allow as much, physical play. And then, you have like Paris is a freshman, Caitlin's a freshman. They're just learning a whole new defense. Like high school, you don't really play defense. You reach and steal from opponents that's not as good. And then you have Amaya, who is adjusting to a quicker game, who has never had to really defend on the perimeter, so has struggled, but is getting better. So I think with all those things, there isn't like one defensive stopper. I think Lauren's the closest to it, and I think Shayna's capable, but it's not the mentality. I think the difference, if you look at like Shayna and Aerie, Shayna is probably even more athletic and like bigger, a little bit stronger. But I think the mentality of Aerie has always been more defensive minded. So I think Shayna is capable of doing the things that Aerie did, but I think the mindset is different. And she's improving that mindset, but I think she can do what Aerie did. I just think that Aerie just kind of grew up being a defensive player, not as much as a slasher to the basket. I think she evolved into that. So I think it's just different. So when you take all of those players in one, like you got to want to play defense. And I think that it's just been a challenge getting us to want to play defense and like want to box out. That's a mentality, and it's not bad. It's just the personnel of your team. So our team is more offensive minded. But I can tell you this: there was in the past 7 years since I've been here. This is my 7th year. In 6 years, there was never a team that we could have ran 2 offenses and score 80 points. Like never. We would have probably scored like 30 points in the past. So like it is what it is. You have to adjust your teams, and so I know that we can score when we're getting good shots and sharing the ball. So it's my job to get us better, and we're only going to get better if we get better defensively. And I think we are getting better, but that has to be a focus. So a lot of people like question, oh, this person's not playing, this person's not playing. I don't really care at all. It means nothing to me because they don't understand what goes into that. People in like a crowd just see scoring. They don't see like a mistake that costs you a game. They don't see a lineup where their bad rotations lead to open shots. Like no one sees that. So that's why I just laugh when people say certain things.
Speaking about defensive players, and you talk about Aerie having a defensive mindset, Sam having a defensive mindset. How difficult is it to have a player with more of an offensive mindset and coach them into that defensive form that you want?
Very difficult. Extremely difficult in a couple months. It doesn't really happen. So what you do is you try to get them better at certain things. So let's say they're not the best at, like Jade has improved her defense a lot in a couple months. She's smart, she's using angles. So let's say they're not the best at closing out. Then you're trying to maybe work on them closing out a little bit shorter, or their technique, or staying lower, and you're trying to improve on some things that can help, or focusing on boxing out more. That's a attention thing. That's not really an athleticism thing. Or Maya, maybe you're not flying out at someone on the perimeter, you're closing out shorter so you can just contest shots and use your length. So you have to teach like more strategy stuff versus I'm not going to make someone like an athlete that's not, or someone, but I think what's hard, it's easier to teach defense than offense. So I can't make a player who cannot shoot be this great shooter. But I can make a player who's a great shooter become a better defender by teaching certain things. Hey, she's really fast, give her another step. But I can't say improve and change your shot to become a shooter. So I think it's better to teach defense than offense, honestly. I mean, I haven't said that all the time this year, but that's the truth. That's not how I felt at times this year. I'm like, oh my gosh, but.
ASU is a go for this week?
I have no idea. Like, I didn't even really know the whole story of last week. You just get told, oh, they're not going to play, but I don't know the exact reasons or what happened. Like, no one explains anything. And I would assume after it would have been 2 weeks. I hope so. But I have no idea. I think you need 6 eligible players, right? 7, okay. Yeah, so I don't know because they only had 4 last week. So I hope they.
Deadline for that in terms of.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the rules on that because it's never happened. But I know that I hope we're not the team that has to face someone that sits. It's worse. It'd be better for us if it was the Friday game. Yeah, because then, or the Sunday game, because then you're playing Friday. But it's hard when you're the one going on the road, and then the other team just waits for you for a week. That kind of stinks. And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but it would have been better if we both had to play on Friday and someone could just get Sunday off, like for you as the incoming team.
You've been talking all year about you need to get Paris minutes, and you finally did this week. You just talked about how she performed.
She was incredible. Paris has gotten better the last month. I think in the beginning, I think as a freshman, you get really discouraged, which is normal. You lose confidence because you're not playing or in practice. You know, she's going against Shayna. She's going against Helena. She's going against Jade. It's hard. And I think that you get frustrated. And, you know, she was turning the ball over a lot in practice, like a lot. And then just, you know, sometimes not paying attention. But it's like normal freshman stuff. Every freshman goes through it. I think I've seen a big shift in her attitude and her mentality the last month. And just kind of taking it in, being coachable, and I think she's improved. And I think she has a good mindset right now, so I'm proud of the fact that she went in and just played free. And I think that's hard for freshmen to do. She hadn't played in a couple games, and you're going in a situation against a ranked team, a top 10 team, like on the road, that's hard. But I was proud of, she just kind of just played like how Paris plays. So I'm really excited for her, and I think I saw her the next day. She's happy. It's like a weight's off her shoulder, and that's a good thing as a coach because there's a process, and the freshmen won't understand the process. They won't learn till later that it makes them better. And, you know, you're going to face some adversity, but most of them have never faced adversity as far as playing time and being in your role. And, like, all of them are facing some adversity, and you're going to on a top team. You know, you're not going to go in and have, like, the same opportunities. You're not going to go in and just have playing time. That's kind of, you have to earn it and work for it every day. And she's done that. And so she deserved it. It wasn't like I just handed it to her. She deserved it and worked for it and got the opportunity and did great. So now she's going to get more opportunities. That's the way it goes. But then with that, so what does that mean? There's only a certain amount of spots and minutes. So when Paris is getting that opportunity, someone else is getting less of an opportunity. That's what people don't understand. So that's the way it goes. If Maya comes in and does great and is Marion Cater in foul trouble, she's going to get minutes, but then it takes away from someone else. So that's the reality of it, and that's what people don't understand either. It's like, and they don't understand there's matchups, there's different combinations that aren't good together, you know, defensively at all or offensively. So those are the things that people don't get. So while she's doing good, yeah, but then someone else probably doesn't get as much of a chance. Like, that's kind of how it is.
So what have you seen in the development of Lauren Fields? You know, a couple weeks ago she had that,
Yeah.
she helped you with that great finish against Oregon State. She does defense, like all of a sudden you look up and she'll have 3 or 4 steals. She's really sneaky that way.
Yeah, I think Lauren Fields has been struggling. She's in a little bit of a funk, but doesn't mean anything. I think that she's really overthinking and just probably frustrated. And it's normal. As a player, I've been in those situations where you're not shooting it well. You know, she's used to, she's coming from a place where she was the star player and scored the most points, and coming to a team where no one scores more than 11, 12 points, and adjusting to a different role. And I think it's been challenging for her at times, and I'm trying to find ways to get her more involved, so I ran some stuff for her early. But I think the free throw, that's just a mental thing. She's capable of shooting free throws. I think it's just she's down about them, just like Shayna was before. And once you get down, you got to get over that mental block, and she will. I believe in her, and I wouldn't still start her if I didn't. And, you know, for us defensively, she's our second best defender on the team, or she's one of the best on the ball. I'd say her and Shayna. So there are certain times where we really need her in the game, and we're not able to get stops. But then, you know, she just hasn't been as productive offensively, but she can be. So I think just hang in there, and I think she'll be fine.
And what have you seen from Kaylin once you hit the tougher part of your schedule?
I think she's done well. I think that she just didn't get as much of an opportunity last game because Paris came in and did really well. I think, you know, just a freshman, like, nerves is that turnover that she threw like 10 feet over someone's head. But I think that's just settling in. The hard thing for me as a coach, and I know them as a player, is the timed experiment isn't in the game when, like, it's a one-possession game. So there are certain times as a coach you want to let someone kind of work through that, but if you have 2 or 3 mistakes, you're down 10. So I think that's what's challenging sometimes against good teams. And I think that's just the way it is. You make a mistake early and you're coming off the bench, you're probably going to go out. And that's not the way ideally you want to coach as a coach. You want to let people make more mistakes, but like we're trying to win games too. So the timed experiment isn't in games, you know, against top teams. So it's like you have to give them those reps in practice and put them in pressure situations and then hope that translates to the game. But that's the process, and that process is hard. Kaylin's another kid that is used to averaging like 30 points a game. When I saw her in high school, I think that game she had 45 points. So it's a different role. You don't get as many opportunities, and it's hard. I think and all the freshmen I think are going through that a little bit. And I think all over the country are seeing the same thing.
So, yesterday, Dave Rubio announced his retirement. Can you share any, like, I know that you were close with him.
Yeah.
You both recruited Lauren
Yeah.
Ware, and you know, can you share any stories about how he's helped you, and especially when you first came in as a young coach to this program?
He's helped me tremendously. I've had talks with him, some events, like, hey, do you ever go through this? And he's gone through everything because he coached for so long. Yeah, I've shared stuff with him that, like, stuff I was going through with the team and certain players, and like how did he handle things. I think I just talked to him like 2 weeks ago, and he didn't tell me then he was retiring, so I thought he had a couple more years. But I think he's helped me just with advice and how to handle certain things, or certain team situations where I'm like, have you ever like dealt with something like this? He's like, absolutely. So he always understood and gave me good advice. So I would talk to him probably once every few weeks or every month. And I think that there's a lot of value for me as a younger coach to talk to someone like him or Candrea, and it helps a lot because I mean I could read a book, but I could talk to them for 5 minutes and learn more than I would in 2 or 3 books. So he has experience. He's done a great job for so long, and the thing that's like, I know he coached a long time, but Dave didn't age for like 30 years, so he looks the same as he did when I played here. But I think what I'm seeing and what it kind of makes me sad is that coaches are getting burned out. I think with the generation of players and the way you have to coach them and the things you have to do and the things you can't do, I think time is really changing. It's so different from when I played. It's so different from when I started at Arizona. I can tell you, it's like night and day. Just what I started to coach like 7 years ago and today. And I could see if I'm an older coach that's been doing it for 20 more years, I can see how it wears on you because it's things that have worn on me in 7 years. So I'm like, gosh, if I did this 25 more years, I don't know if I'd make it. Because it's like the entitled athlete, the level of expectations, the helicopter parents, the lack of understanding the process, the want for immediate gratification. Those are things that like are hard for me to understand because I wasn't raised that way. Like you'd be amazed on, like, and I don't know if it's because I'm a younger coach and I'm more open. Like if you want to call me, I'll talk to you. But it's like you'd be amazed at how many texts I've received after games that we won, talking about their kids, and just like it surprises me, and it's like it shouldn't surprise me, but it really does, just because it's not how my parents were. My parents would have me look in the mirror a lot more instead of having excuses, and I've had parents call people around me asking things, and I just think a lot of it's inappropriate, and I think it's just you see why a lot of players are where they are because of their parents and what their parents enable them to do. And I think it's just sad because I think there's no sense of like, what are you doing or the kids' accountability. And then I think that the other hard thing is too, like kids don't usually tell their parents the truth. The parents know like 20% of what's going on. And so I think it's just harder with this generation. So for Dave to be dealing with this at year 30 or 31, I think it was, that's exhausting. And I think you don't want to deal with that. You want to coach and you want to run your team. And it's very hard to within the confines of how college athletics are today. And I think you're seeing that a lot on the men's side too. They're like, I'm out of here. Like, didn't Villanova coach a year ago? I was like, I'm out of here. Because you don't want to deal with that. You're like, the most important, and it's crazy. If you ask most coaches, the most important thing is first, can you win? In most of these programs, like, we can win. The second thing is NIL. And then, like, what can you do for me? Like, how much money can I make? I think, and then probably the third thing is the photo shoot and the videos they make. So, like, that, I mean, look at that priority. So you're talking about NIL, what can you do for me now? How much money can I make? And then it's all about you and like, what are you getting? It's not about you like helping the team win. It's about what can you do for my daughter while she's here. If she helps you win, she does. She's trying to go play pro. I don't know. It's just a mentality. So I think that what I'm understanding for me, there's certain type of players I'm going to recruit and like certain that I'm really going to hone in on. And then now that's challenging because we're all going to be going into the portal. Every top program is going to lose players. You're going to lose freshmen because they don't want to wait and get better. They have everybody in their ear telling them they're better than they are. They don't have the work ethic and the mentality, so they're going to jump ship and go to other teams. It's not going to be better. And so then it's going to force coaches to go into the portal, and then you haven't recruited those kids so long. So it's like this cycle of that hurts college athletics. You're going to see rarely the Kates in the program for 5 years. But I think the difference too is like a lot of players enter a program where they can play right away and they're happy. But like I'm talking about top programs where good players that expect to play aren't going to play right away. Those are players that you're going to look all over the country. And I hope someone does a stat on it, like how many of those freshmen really play and how many leave programs. I think it's going to be crazy. Like I'm talking about if you got like 10 All-Americans, how many All-Americans you lose in the first couple of years. So I think it's going to be a lot. And then the new transfer rules that when you take someone, they have to stay on your roster. So I think all that stuff is hurting athletics, to be honest.
Did you ever think of leaving when you were a freshman?
Never. It never even crossed my mind. I never thought of leaving. Well, I thought about quitting a couple times. I hated Coach P my first year because she held me accountable because I was like a 17-year-old baby. But it never crossed my mind. And then I wouldn't have had the nerve to tell my parents that. Any complaint I said to my parents, they would say, well, you can't dribble with your left hand. You're not a good shooter yet. You can't dribble. So maybe you should start working on that before you start complaining. Or like it was always on me. It was like, well, work harder. And I was always taught, like, give your coach a reason not to play you. Or like give them something they can't live without. So like do something so well that like they have to play you. So you're like such a good rebounder where they're like, we need her for rebounding. Or you're such a good scorer, like where they have to play you. That's how I was taught. And I give an example. I was a scorer in college. I could not score after college because I switched positions. I went from the 4 to the 3. I was not a good 3. I had never played a 3 in my life. But I was the best role player because I didn't care. It wasn't about me. I wanted to play. So I remember Ann Donovan, was the coach, and she wanted someone like that, let's say, could rebound, and they could like do fakes and run the defense. So I became the best rebounding, fake, running defense person in the country. Like I couldn't even spell defense in college, but they were like, you need to play defense to play. I became some defensive stopper, and I don't know how. But like whatever the coach needed, I was gonna do. And if you wanted energy, I was gonna be diving on every ball. I was gonna be going, like that was just my mentality. So it's just different. I wasn't thinking like about me. So I don't think kids are like that nowadays. Like they're not tough. They don't have it's all about them and it's all about scoring. Like there's been so many times this year I've heard, well, if I give the ball up, I don't know if I'm gonna get it back. But like when everybody's saying that, like it's just like, it's not, those aren't team things. So I think the mindset now is very selfish. And I'm talking about this generation. It's like, what NLI can you do? And it's all correlated to that because if you don't play well, you're not getting that. So it's all tied to like me. And like, what do I get and how do I get it and what am I getting from it? So, it's just different.
So there was another retirement this week, one that we sort of expected but didn't expect, Maya Moore.
Oh, yeah. I didn't.
What do you remember about her and her, she dominated the league, she dominated college for such a long time.
Yeah, I love her. Amazing human being, like different, genuine, hardworking, just an awesome person, like a connector. When you talk to her, you like love her. If you talk to her for 5 minutes, you walk out like, I love her. She's just a good person. Worked hard. I remember how jacked she was, strong, and I love everything about her. But as a person and a player, there's no one in the league. People loved her, loved playing with her. Great teammate. I never played with her, but I knew people that played with her, and all my interactions and friendship with her was amazing. And I think her story is also amazing. For her quitting and the reasons why. And I need to see her documentary, but. Just everything about her, but it doesn't surprise you because of who she is as a person. I think that she could have stayed in it and dominated a lot longer. But the fact that she's fulfilled and willing to walk away at whatever cost, that's pretty amazing because not a lot of people are like that. So I love Maya Moore. If I can find a Maya Moore, it'd be great. With some championships first, but just like the person and the work ethic and just everything. A lot of great players. I don't know too many great players that are like her. Like I'm talking about as a human being. So.
About all the upsets in the Pac-12?
Crazy. Yeah, the USC, Stanford. USC is really good. I think we're just beating each other up. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing for later on. Our conference is strong. I'm glad it's back up to where it should be. If you looked last year, I always talked about how this year is going to be better because not so many injuries. throughout our conference. So I think it's just going to continue. I think I'd hate to be the team that plays Stanford. I think it's Utah, right? If I'm Utah, I'm like, oh, dang. Playing Stanford after that loss, because Tara they're going to play, I think, really well. So I'm glad it's not us. But anybody can win on any given night, regardless of the standings. So I think there's no game that's an easy game, unfortunately, but it's fun. I think that's what it's about. But I think all of these things, I think Stanford losing to USC, I think our loss to Utah, I think all of these things will help us in the tournament. And I think even though we lost, I think we can build on a lot of great things and get better. So I think it's fun, exciting for basketball. I love the parity. Cool, thanks.